Welcome back, friends. You're just in time for the Johnny Brew Show.
Hi, I'm Mark Robertson. I'm running for Congress as a Republican for Nevada's 3rd Congressional District. I spent 30 years in the Army. I enlisted as a private and retired as a colonel. I know that we must secure our borders. It is a matter of national security. I have a degree in finance from BYU and an MBA. I know how the economy works, and I know how to balance a budget. I'm the only candidate who has lived in our congressional district since before it was formed. My wife and I raised our children here. I owned a business here. We work, play, shop, worship, and serve in CD3. I will be accountable to the people of our district because they are my friends and my neighbors. I'm running for Congress to stop the Democrats' plunge into socialism. We can take back our country. Our best days are ahead of us. To learn more, go to robertsonforcongress.com. I'm Mark Robertson. I'm running for Congress, and I approve this message.
What's going on, everybody? My name is John Brookhagen, host of the Johnny Brew Show, and welcome to another episode. We love having you. We are currently on both YouTube and backing up our videos on Rumble. I need you to subscribe. I need you to hit the little bell. All right, we're going to be talking about all kinds of Republican candidates over the next 6 months leading up to the primaries in June. Come January, we're going to start cataloging everything, so every single race will have as much information as possible. If you're going to be running here in Nevada, please let us know. We want to talk to you. There's nothing like really getting to know somebody, and these 10-minute sound, or 10 minutes if you're lucky, 2-minute sound bites on Tucker Carlson isn't going to get the job done, nor is a 5-minute appearance on network TV. That's why we sit down with the candidates and really try to get to know them, because I think a lot of our strife comes from the fact that we just don't know each other well enough. And, you know, you hang on to one bad thing you hear about somebody, and really, we are so much more than our worst moments. Luckily, our guest that we have today, there isn't a lot of controversy or bad moments being spoken about him, but he is running in House District 3. Mark Robertson will be joining April Becker, John Cavazos, who's got that VGK stealing thing going on, Noah Malgiri, Clark Bossert, and someone has just told me that 6th guy, Prighton, or whatever his name is, has withdrawn or will be shortly withdrawing from the race. So, without further ado, let's introduce Mr. Mark Robertson.
Hey, it's good to be here with you today.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm really glad you came by.
Hey, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And, you know, some of the things, as we've been looking, as we get into election season, and we got so many candidates, there are so many websites and stuff that lack professionalism. And oh my gosh, from your website to your videos and everything, you really got a professional touch. I mean, and you look like a politician, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but you know, you look really nice and you got all this great video production, your website's good, so I think we're off to a good start.
I'm glad to hear that. I've got an amazing team. Almost all of them volunteers. Almost all of them are doing this because they, like me, don't like the direction we're going and they want to do something about it. And so most of everything you just talked about was produced by a volunteer. Beautiful.
So maybe after the election, do you need some video editing volunteers? All right. So we'll try to get their phone numbers. But, you know, that's happening. We've been talking about that on the Johnny Brew Show a lot, is how people are really bringing their expertise to the table. You know, conservatives in the past went to work, went home, leave me alone, lower taxes, you know, and that's that. And they didn't necessarily get involved. And I feel like the turbulence has been a call to action. And I know there's people like Rob at the Patriot Impact. He's good with computers and SEOs and stuff like that. I don't even know what an SEO is. But he's good at that, so he's trying to gather people, to the information to become like precinct directors or election day observers or phone callers or knocking on doors. And, another friend, Natalie, she's really good at graphic arts. So any candidates maybe that doesn't have such a great team, she helps Republican candidates do a little bit of graphics and stuff. And everybody's trying to bring what they got to the table. And it sounds like you got an incredible team.
Yeah, and I keep hearing that over and over again. People telling me, I've never been involved in politics. Just like you said, I go to work, come home, play with my kids.
Right.
And truthfully, I've never thought I would be running for office. This isn't a bucket item for me.
Right, and we're going to get into your history and stuff, but if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time you've ever run for anything ever.
That is correct.
Well, God bless you, man. Way to step up to the plate. What we like to do here on the Johnny Bruce Show is really get to know you a little bit, and I've been doing a little bit of homework. I'd like to learn more about you from you than some Ballotopedia or Wikipedia summary, but you grew up in California, Orange, California.
I was born in Orange, but my parents were in the Navy, and we moved around a lot. So I was born in Orange, and my little brother was born in Chicago, my sister in St. Louis, my other sister in Tampa, and my other brother in Maryland. So
you're not a California product, you're a military brat product.
Yeah, military, and then my dad was a meat cutter, and he worked for a national meat cutting firm that moved him around the country.
So he continued, after being out of the military, he continued to be a nomad.
Yeah,
for lack of a better term.
He joked we moved whenever the rent was due.
And you got 4 brothers and sisters.
Yeah, I have 2 of each, 2 brothers and 2 sisters.
And you're one of the youngest, not the youngest?
I'm the second.
Gotcha. And then what does your family do? Anything interesting?
You mean my brothers and sisters?
Yeah, brothers and sisters.
Yeah. We pride ourselves on not being the Brady Bunch. We're kind of this unique group, and my older brother has passed away, but he joined the Navy, served in the Navy for a time. My little brother, I still consider him my little brother. He speaks Spanish and Japanese fluently.
Is he a diplomat?
He's not.
Maybe one day?
He's an accountant.
Sounds like math runs in the family. You got no problems with math here on the Johnny Bruce Show. So, and then you ended up going into the Army. Before that even, you got a job. How old were you when you got your first job?
So I was in junior high. I was in 7th grade, and I got a job washing dishes in a restaurant.
What kind of a restaurant? Because it sounds like you're telling my story.
Oh, really? It was just this little diner of a restaurant, and I went to work the first day, and I did the dishes. But I had to walk there from school, and then I had to walk home afterwards.
And you're 12.
And I'm probably 13 at the time.
Right.
And anyway, I did the math, and I figured out I was only making about 50 cents an hour, or less.
Cold, right.
Yeah, because of all the walking and everything, and so I quit. And I walked home, and I told my dad I quit. He says, "Why did you quit?" And I says, "Well, I figured out I was only making 50 cents an hour." He said, "Get in the car." And he drove me to the restaurant, and I unquit.
Right quick.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to walk to the restaurant that time,
That's
so
right.
all of a sudden you had a ride.
That's right.
And because my first job was delivering papers when I was 11.
Oh, sure.
But then when I was 13, I got a job washing dishes at an Italian restaurant. And me and my wife was speaking. She had just hired somebody who was looking to get back into the workforce as a dishwasher. It was an old lady. And I was saying, that's not easy work.
Right.
And, some of the pots and pans are big and heavy. The water's hot. You got to have the scrubbers and everything. And
you got to be fast.
Right. Because
it's not something you're like taking your time with.
Right. And I remember that vividly. And, I think it's great when, young adults work, towards something or play athletics and they go to practice every day. It's almost like a job.
I agree. Keeping kids, especially youth, anxiously engaged in something.
Right. And nothing great has been done without a little bit of work and a little bit of a lack of sleep.
That's right.
So then you graduated and you didn't have money for college. I guess, you had 5 kids too, 4 other siblings there. You can't send 5 kids to college on a military salary.
Yeah, I didn't come from a family with a lot of money. I mentioned my dad was a meat cutter. He went back to school and became a social worker. Social workers don't make a lot of money, and my mom was a nurse. Yeah, so when I graduated from high school, actually before I graduated from high school, I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't have
a path there.
Yeah, I didn't, and so It was just at the end of the Vietnam era, and the GI Bill was running out. So I had a deadline. I had to enlist before December 31st, 1976, and so I did.
And Johnny Brew was born June of 1976.
Hey, yeah, so you were about 4 or 5 months old when I joined.
Unbelievable. And then, so that worked out, though. You qualified, you got the GI Bill, and what, did you spend 2 years or 4 years in the Army?
Yeah, so I had a 4-year commitment, and my first duty station was in Germany.
Where in Germany?
In Augsburg, which is between Munich and Stuttgart in southern Germany. And then my next duty station was Fort Rucker, Alabama, which is the Army Aviation Center where they trained helicopter pilots.
Cool.
And while there, I just came across this piece of paper on my boss's desk, and it talked about a active duty scholarship. And so
and you just happened to walk in and you happened to see it sitting on the desk?
Yeah, it was just pure chance. And I said, hey, can I take this? And he said, sure.
Right.
And so I didn't take it real serious, but over the next few days, I kind of filled out the application, and I went through the process, and they only awarded 25 scholarships that year, and I didn't think I'd have much chance. 700,000 people in the Army, and they only given 25 scholarships. But yeah, I sent it in.
I'd say, somebody has to be in Congress, right? I mean, it's not like so far out there that it's a pipe dream.
Right.
25 people are going to get that scholarship. Somebody's going to represent NV3. That's the bottom line. And somebody's got to play quarterback, for the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
There's a person.
Yeah,
in 20 years, there's a 2-year-old that's one day going to play. I mean, it's a real thing.
That's how it works. And I encourage people, just go for it. Just go for it. So I did. I sent it in. And I was picked. I was one of those 25. I was feeling really good about that until I asked, what was it about my application? Why did you pick me? And the person who processed the applications told me, well, you got picked because we only received 20 applications. Everyone who applied got one. But it's still a lesson there.
Another lesson, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, look at this guy in New Jersey. He was a
that's right,
a truck driver, right? And he's like, nobody would run against this guy because he was so powerful that no Democrats would ever, touch the burner, and no Republican. We live in Jersey, we're all Democrat. Who's going to run? The guy's like, I'll run.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of a good news, bad news story. The good news is we got a good conservative Republican now in that state Senate seat. Bad news is that this Biden economy has one less truck driver.
We lost a truck driver. And what do you think is more important, another politician or a truck driver?
Hey, I think it's important that he replaced a Democrat in the state assembly.
Well, that's true. There you go. Right. Addition by subtraction, right?
That's right.
So, all right. So what happened? So you ended up going to BYU with this scholarship?
Yeah. So
why BYU? I noticed you're with the Church of Latter-day Saints.
That's right.
Is that pre-BYU or post-BYU?
Yeah, it was post BYU. In fact, when I got the scholarship, I knew I wanted to be a missionary for my church, and so I asked. I didn't think it was possible.
What do you mean your church? Because I know you move around a lot.
So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I asked
before you went to BYU.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
So while I was in the military, and so I got this scholarship, and I said, any chance I could get a
2-year
scholarship? I mean, a leave of absence. And they said, are you a Mormon? And I said, I am. And they said, yes, we give leaves of absence. Even at West Point, the cadets can get a leave of absence.
Really?
Yeah. And so it worked out perfect. I was able to.
So tell me a little bit about your mission. I mean, that's interesting. I see the kids on the bikes and stuff like that. And some of them, I guess maybe you know more than me because I don't know anything. So I guess you do. But, some of these kids go to the inner cities. Yeah. Some of these kids go to Las Vegas. Some of these kids go to the boondocks. And they ride around with their helmets and their bikes, spreading the word of Jesus. And
that's it.
And it's crazy. I know sometimes the church loses some people, which I think is, better to, let that happen, let people find themselves.
Everyone has their own freedom.
Right. So tell me about that just a little bit.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, missionaries are worldwide. Any country that allows freedom of religion allows religion to be discussed. We even have missionaries in China.
Can you give me a percentage of countries that have freedom of religion?
Well, there's hundreds of countries that our missionaries are serving in.
Really? Because I know we got 212 countries in the world. So I know some. I know Saudi Arabia doesn't have freedom of religion.
Right. Yeah, so whatever countries allow for freedom of religion. My son went to Venezuela, and but the political situation was getting tough, and he was pulled out of Venezuela, and he finished his mission in Chile.
Oh, so he was there right before it went down, and then
Yeah.
moved over to Chile.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, it could be anywhere in the world.
And did you tell me about the experience of that? I mean, what do? You knock on doors and say, "Do you know about Jesus?"
Yeah, and you want to know more. Yeah.
And that sounds like politics. Now you're going on. You know about Mark Robertson.
There are a lot of parallels between the two. Yeah, it was good training for me.
Yeah, and it sounds like your family was all about public service, whether you're talking about social work or nursing or military. You know, everything seems to revolve around something better for the community or the church.
Yeah, my parents were big on service, and my dad, it would just drive him crazy if he came home and we were all sitting around watching TV. He would turn off the TV and say, "Come on, let's go." He wanted us doing something.
Right, and yeah, it's funny because I work with some kids and they were having trouble. They were supposed to write a rap about being proactive, and I wrote something about the kid. I forget what was it. Should I rap? No, I'm getting a no. Yes. What is it? Only causes strife. Make your bed, clean your room, go fly a kite instead of sitting in your room, locked in your room every night or something like that. But it sounds like if your dad was to write a rap, it would probably be just as bad and just the same message, right?
Yeah.
All right, so then you go to BYU, you served your mission, and then you decide that you want to go back in?
Oh, so when I got the scholarship, it came with an obligation.
Was it an ROTC scholarship?
Exactly, it was an ROTC scholarship.
Is this when ROTC kind of started?
No.
Oh, that's been going on
ROTC,
for a long time?
Yeah, it began, I don't know, World War I.
Right.
Yeah.
I got an ROTC scholarship in 1994, and I went to Embry-Riddle.
Oh, in Daytona Beach?
Correct.
I grew up in Daytona Beach. It's where I went to high school.
Really?
That's where I joined the Army.
Which high school did you go to?
Mainland Senior High.
Really?
Just down the street.
Right on University Boulevard, is it?
No, on Volusia.
Volusia.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I spent 2 years in Daytona Beach. Unfortunately, I went back to college. I think I was telling you before the show recently. I didn't fulfill my end of the scholarship by having a 2.67. I needed a 2.85, and I didn't see the world for what it was at the time. My vision was a little fuzzy when I was 19. So I had an ROTC scholarship, and I was very excited about that aspect of it.
Yeah. It's a nice deal for somebody, who doesn't, may not be able to go.
And plus, would you rather be a private or an officer?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
There's a big difference, and like I tell you, later I'll tell you about my son joining, and I encouraged him to become an officer, and he wanted to stay a sergeant. But so it's each person's decision and what they want to do.
Right. Again, church, military, professional life, everybody's got their own path. And that's what conservatism is, right? It's about the individual.
Right.
We're all different. We all have our own path, whether it's religion, profession, service.
Yeah, I think this freedom thing is something we fought for even before we were born. I think that to God, freedom and the ability to choose your own is an important principle.
It is. Unfortunately, it's not innate.
It's not.
It needs to be practiced.
Right.
If you let your guard down, or if you don't work out that muscle, you lose it, and you lose it quick. You find out it goes quick.
Yeah. I mean, there's some people think that it's government that grants us freedom, but we know that's not true. It's God that gave us His freedom,
and which created the best system of economy and politics the world has ever known. Not perfect, but
that's right, the very best.
The very best. So you go back in, and now you are a officer.
Second lieutenant.
And I'm guessing you spent another 20 years in the Army?
I spent a total of 30.
Including the college?
No.
And the mission?
Oh, well, yeah, and he did include the college, but not the mission, so 30 years in uniform.
Gotcha.
And about 15 of that was on active duty, and about 15 was in the reserves.
Wow. And I saw you saw a lot of different countries, and you saw a few conflicts. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
I served in 10 different foreign countries and 3 different combat zones, Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait. My last deployment was in support of operations in Syria.
Wow. I mean, those are some hotbeds, and Kuwait is very specific. I'm guessing that was 92 or 93?
So 91 is when
91
is when we liberated Kuwait, but I wasn't there in 91. I was there later than that. Yeah, but the deployment to Iraq, something interesting there is I deployed with my own son.
That's amazing.
Yeah, my oldest son, Stephen, was at BYU on scholarship, not an ROTC scholarship, an academic scholarship, a family scholarship, actually. And he called to say that he was joining the Army.
Not to ask you if he should.
No.
To tell you he's made a decision.
Actually, he didn't even tell us. He just said, he asked his mom, my wife, he says, could you get my birth certificate, my Eagle Scout certificate, and my high school diploma?
Right. As if your wife's not going to say why.
Yeah. Yeah. So I said, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm joining the Army. I said, don't sign anything. I drove immediately up to the campus, and I said, Stephen, why are you doing this? You don't need the money.
Right.
Because that was my motivation.
Right.
I said, you don't need the money. And this was 2007. Things were not going well in Iraq in 2007.
Right.
There were young men were dying, and young men and women were dying by those roadside bombs.
Right. Not like the past few years where we were kind of taking it for granted. Back then, yeah, you would get reports
every day. In fact, our own senator here in Nevada had just declared that we had lost the war in Iraq. So I said, Steve, why the Army? He said, well, the Army will guarantee me to send me to language school. I said, what language do you want to learn?
Right. I got Rosetta Stone in the car.
He said, Arabic. And my heart just sunk. I said, Steve, if you learn Arabic, they're going to send you to Iraq.
They're going to send you to an Arabic-speaking nation.
I said Iraq because that's where they needed
Right,
it.
at the time.
Yeah, and he said 3 words, I know, Dad. He was joining, knowing that he'd be sent to Iraq. He thought it was the right thing to do, and he did. And he finished his basic training. Then he was military intelligence, and he finished that school. Then 18 months in language school, and then 2010 he came down on orders for Iraq.
And I don't know, is this some sort of like Saving Private Ryan rule? Where, I mean, how does your wife feel? Are you guys over there together? Are you guys in a helicopter together? You know, tell me about that experience. I mean, I went, just talking to my son and talking about football, might be the same thing as you talking about military service. It fills me with pride and just the joy of sitting down and talking with my son about stuff like this.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to play quarterback with my son, him catching the passes or you serving with him side by side.
Yeah, well, it was an immense honor for me. I'm the one that swore him. I administered the oath to him. When he made sergeant, I'm the one who pinned his sergeant's stripes on him, and he saluted me. I had what every dad wishes they had. I had a federal law that said my son has to call me sir.
And listen to you.
But it was a real honor and a special privilege to be able to serve in a combat zone with my own son.
Right.
It was tough on my wife.
That's what I was thinking.
Right.
Geez, I mean,
think about she had not only her husband but her son there at the same time.
That's crazy. And tell me, how many kids do you have?
We have 4, 3 boys and a girl.
Nice.
And so this Private Ryan rule doesn't apply unless there's a sole survivor. So if you were down to one son, they wouldn't put that.
Then they wouldn't
son.
let. Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. But I mean, that's special. That's really special. And now you're an officer. You're serving. You got a couple of commendations. You got a Bronze Star. It's a Legion of Merit, I believe it's called. Can you tell me about any sort of anecdotal story? Tell us something special that happened.
Yeah, this is probably one of the tough parts. People tell me as a candidate I need to talk about these things, but as a soldier, it's not something.
It's not a
you
fond
come
memory.
home and brag about. I'd much rather talk about things that other people did. I was so proud of my son. He spoke Arabic, and he would go with an infantry unit, and they were hunting for bad guys, and they would bring my son along to try to
interrogate,
get information, that would be helpful, that could save American lives,
right.
That could end the war, and he saw some tough things that I never saw.
9/11 was a couple of months ago, and it was the 20th anniversary, and I'm friends with a couple of guys who were FDNY, NYPD. And while appreciating the gravity of the situation, I still wanted to have him on so we could talk about it. It's tough to, broach the subject, but at the same time, I think people need to remember, and heroes that were involved need to be recognized. And neither of them, the two that happened to be in Vegas, neither of them wanted to come on. And one of them said to me, you know, it's perspective. You know what I mean? Your remembrance of Iraq is different from my remembrance of Iraq. It's different from somebody who didn't even know we went to war in Iraq, you know? And he says, you know, my memories are dragging pieces of bodies out and, you know, seeing these horrible things. And, you know, he doesn't look, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, after 9/11, we all came together. We were a country. We were united. We were this, that, the other thing. And I tend to put a rosy glow on it. But, you know, you talk to somebody who was there. Right. You know, you think about this show with, who was the sniper? American Sniper, I think was the name of the movie. You know, and you realize that, yeah, we celebrate this guy saving all these American lives, but he doesn't look at himself that way. He looks at himself as the guy who was contemplating shooting a 6-year-old boy. Or
right, exactly.
Perspective is great. Well, what did you win the Medal of Honor for? I
did not win the Medal of Honor. That's our nation's highest, but I did.
Bronze Star. I'm so sorry. The Bronze Star.
Yeah, so there won't be a Hollywood movie made out of about it. My military specialty was something called civil affairs, and civil affairs is concerned with helping after the bad guys have been defeated and are out of the way. For example, in Syria, we would liberate a town, liberate Raqqa, Syria, and so now ISIS is cleared from the town, and it's the civil affairs folks that come in to help the people stand up a civilian government and get their medical
and distribute medical or distribute some food or water, because obviously you guys just bombed the crap out of it in order to get rid of ISIS. So now we gotta provide for the people who are unfortunately residents of these places.
Right, and so that's the work I did in Syria. The work I did in Afghanistan, for example, because I think we ought to talk about Afghanistan as well, considering the recent things that happened in Afghanistan. But in Afghanistan, we the Americans are paying the security forces. Now we know that the government's corrupt. The corruption is just terrible.
Right.
I have photographs of C-130 cargo planes loaded with pallets of $100 bills that we shipped over there. And we would take a block of that money and give it to their regional security boss.
Right.
He would skim some off the top, divide it into smaller stacks, and give them to their police captains. They would skim some off the top. And then that poor guy standing out there at the checkpoint, the ones that are getting blown up, he'd get what's ever left after all these people skimmed it. And so, and it was U.S. dollars, and U.S. dollars can be used anywhere in the world. And we know that some of those dollars are finding their way to the bad guys.
Like Iran even, or
into
China.
Iran to buy all those explosives that were blowing up our sons and daughters. And so we had a mission to get dollars off the battlefield. And I led a team, and we coordinated with a cell inside the embassy to interrupt the flow of financing to the bad guys, interrupting threat financing. And so we took the dollars off, and we instead used Afghani currency. And
that way, that limits what they could do with it.
Exactly, and it also builds up their economy.
Yeah, my friend Ryan Delaney, he passed away a little while ago, but he was the highest non-commissioned person in Iraq. He had a battalion. He would tell me stories about Iraq, and the one thing that sat with him most among all the death and destruction is he would be at a desk with a pallet of money, like a pallet, and as soon as it got a little low, they'd bring in and they'd and he's just sitting, you know, and obviously his office is a tent in the middle of a desert, and he's sitting there with literally $10 million, you know, under his desk, not in a safe, not nothing. I mean, it's on an army base, but still, you know, and obviously in the military, the only people not skimming off that pile are our servicemen. Those are the only people not skimming off that.
I was in Afghanistan in 2011, and I knew then.
And that's when he was there. Ryan Delaney?
Oh, okay. An NCO, probably a sergeant major.
Yeah, that's what he was.
Okay, yeah. Can't remember meeting him.
Yeah, but nonetheless.
Yeah, so I was in and out of Kabul. I was in and out of Bagram Air Base. I know how secure Bagram Air Base is.
Right.
I was also in and out of Fort Knox, Kentucky. You know, we talk about Fort Knox holds our gold.
Right.
Really secure location. Bagram is more secure than Fort Knox.
And that's the idiocy of the whole thing, right? Is that no matter what we wanted to do, we could have left.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of Americans support leaving. Some Americans believe we should have kept a presence there. But regardless of the decision you made, we didn't have to lose American lives.
Correct. And we didn't have to do it the way we did. You don't have to be a military genius to know that you should keep Bagram open until you've cleared out all of the civilians and all the people you need.
And how about keeping the military there until all the civilians are out?
Yeah, and letting our NATO partners know what we're doing.
Right.
We left them in a lurch.
They didn't even know it was happening until after it happened.
Yeah, exactly. We left in the middle of the night without letting them know. It was just a debacle, a huge embarrassment.
Almost to the point where it's got to be intentional. I mean, almost. I mean, you just think that I'm not a military guy,
Right.
And you're not the president.
Right.
But even I know, and you with your experience obviously know that there's got to be a better way.
Right.
You get the people out. They said there was 100 to 200, not necessarily citizens, but what is the word? Naturalized or
green
United
card or
States.
special visa.
Yeah, United States, not all necessarily citizens, but they have United States ID and everything. I'm missing the word, but. Yeah, residents, and green card holders and so on and so forth. And they said it was between 100 and 200. And a report came out, zero media attention, that it's well over 10,000.
Oh, yeah. It's
well over
it's
10,000.
And the hundreds of thousands that we brought out, the 100,000 we brought out, many of those we should have never brought.
Right,
Those
right.
are the people that Taliban wanted us to take.
Those people from the picture in the cargo plane where
Right.
they were all stacked in.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
saying,
yeah.
That's the perfect example of, 90% of these people should not be being flown to the United States.
Yeah, no,
and we have people who served us
Right.
that aren't.
Now, that's the type of leadership we're getting now. That's one of the reasons I'm running is we just can't let this keep going the way it's going. We've got to stop this.
Well, your opponent is Susie Lee. She's a Democrat, obviously, and she's been accused of things from, crony capitalism or stock trades and stuff like that. Where does she stand on some of this foreign policy?
Yeah, so she votes with Nancy Pelosi 99% of the time. She votes with AOC 96% of the time. She is not representing her district. Her district is only 1/3 Democrat. This
Right.
district is only 1/3, and she votes with the most radical elements within her district.
Right, and for those of you who don't know, CD3 is the very tip southern of Nevada. So it's got Boulder City, it's got Pahrump, it's got, the Southern Highlands.
Doesn't have Pahrump, but does have, it goes all the way to, starting at Laughlin and moving north. It's got Laughlin and Boulder City, Searchlight, all of Henderson, and then on the west side of the valley, it goes all the way up to South Summerlin.
Got you. Up to the 215?
Up to the Summerlin Parkway. Actually, it goes.
Well, that's what I meant, the Summerlin Parkway.
Yeah, it just goes just north of Summerlin Parkway.
Yeah, I'm one block out of your district.
Oh, you're in CD4.
I'm right in Summerlin, the town center, right just north of Summerlin Parkway.
Okay, so the district line just goes just north, by about a mile north.
Of the Summerlin Parkway?
Yeah.
Oh, that means I would be in your district.
Yeah, it splits that Sun City Summerlin.
Right. Gotcha. And so Susie Lee is just a progressive Democrat or a socialist Democrat.
Yeah,
they're starting to split into two factions.
Right.
The progressives and the socialists.
Yeah. I'll let her speak for herself, but I know how her voting record says. She
Right.
votes with the extreme parts
Either.
of the party. Yeah.
I'll vote socialist, I'll vote progressive.
Right.
She just won't vote conservative, even though she's So how did she get in? Did we just not have a candidate?
We had a candidate, so the last two candidates we've put up as Republicans, I tried to get them elected. They would be better than Susie Lee, but she's not.
And who were they?
So the last one was Dan Rodheimer. He was the
Right.
professional wrestler that
Right.
moved here to run.
I believe he's running in Texas now.
He did move to Texas and ran in a special election and did not win that. And again, Dan would have been better than Susie Lee, but he had some baggage. He had a 911 tape.
Yeah, I remember the
Remember?
tape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Danny Tarkanian, great last name for Southern Nevada.
Right,
You
right.
know, his dad coached the national championship basketball team. But he also had some financial and ethical issues.
Right.
And Susie Lee never ran on issues. She just
Right, she
attacked.
And
And
that's their political strategy is to attack and to make other people look bad, not to run on their own merit.
It's not going to work this time.
Well, not with you. That's what I was saying. I've been spending all week trying to find some dirt on you. Jeez, where do you come from?
Yeah.
You've been too busy working.
She'll have to run on the issues, and she'll lose.
And then she'll have to lose on that. And that's what I was talking about earlier, though, is that we shouldn't be remembered by our worst possible moment.
Right.
I mean, it's relevant, obviously, but at the same time, again, Rhode-Island would have been much better for us and to represent the people of CD3 than Susie Lee was. But I think, you might be better than Rhode-Island.
I'm running because I just got tired of hoping somebody else would do something about it.
Right. And how are things going with your race? I mean, are you getting any numbers back? I mean, are you in the top 3 of Republicans for the primary?
Yeah, no, it's going very well. I'm the only one who's... I quit my job and sold my business, and so I'm working full time. I am all in on this, and so I spend every day, all day, every day, out talking to people of CD3.
Well, I saw you just this past week. You are in Washington D.C. All week talking as if you look like a member of Congress. Your political site looks like professionals doing it. I'm following you this week, looking for dirt. Didn't find any. But nothing. You're up in Congress. You're rubbing elbows with our current Republican House members. You seem like it's like no offense, but it's like take your son to work day. They're all bringing you, showing you the ropes, showing you what they do on a daily basis. What was that experience like? Tell me about your trip.
Well, no, it was real instructional. I tell you, I'm so optimistic for our country. I met members of Congress. We hear people say, oh, they're all bums, they're all greedy, they're all in it for themselves. That is just not true. I met members of Congress. I met with 24 of them this week. And they're there for the right reason. They're concerned about our country. It's a lot of sacrifice to run for office. I am so grateful that good people are willing to run for office. And these people that are serving now, these ones they're there for the right reason. They sacrifice time with their families, and they sacrifice a lot, and they're there for the right reason. So I'm much more optimistic than before I met these people, and those meetings were good for me. They were coaching me and telling me. Right,
that's what I was gathering, and I was excited for you.
Yeah, but more important, with meeting with members of Congress, I spend most of my time meeting with people of CD3. Finding out what the people hear, what's important to them. I mean, if you think about it, John, I'm running. I'm asking to be their representative in Congress, and if I'm going to represent them correctly, I need to know what's important to them and what they think is important.
Right. I mean, while I'm daydreaming, thinking about if I was ever a politician, you wonder, do you run on your own values or do you run as a representative?
Yeah.
Do you represent what's best for the people? Or do you represent what you ran on? Hey, I'm a Christian, or I'm a God-fearing religious man, and we're not going to do abortion, and we're going to cut taxes, and that's it.
Yeah.
Or do you interact with the people and say, what do you want from your schools? What do you want from the federal government? What do you want from greenhouse gases or the border and whatnot?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's called representative for a reason, and I think it's part of the brilliance of our Constitution that the members of the House have to run every 2 years.
Right.
They have to stay responsive, or they should have to stay responsive to the people, or the people can fire them every 2 years. So I think it's a bit of a combination of making sure you're representing what's important to them, but also communicating who you are.
Right, and why you make the decisions you make.
Yeah.
You might make a decision that people don't like offhand, but you're doing it because down the road this is going to end up creating more jobs while doing this, that, or the other thing.
Yeah, and so there needs to be this conversation that's going on where they're telling me what's important to them. I'm telling them, okay, here's the issues that are coming up. Here's how I intend to vote. And that we're having this dialogue.
So what are the issues that people are bringing to you? I mean, if you could narrow down the top 3 or top 5, what do the people of Southern Nevada want from a federally elected congressman?
Yeah, the number one issue I keep hearing over and over from people is secure our borders. And if you think about it, if we don't secure our borders, we don't really have a country. It's a matter of national security.
And is this a racist trope that all the white people from Southern Nevada are saying, or are you getting this from the plurality?
This is from everybody. It doesn't matter their race or gender. We got to secure our borders. Because it's not just people of color, people that want to come to America that are coming across their borders. There's guns and drugs. I mean, this fentanyl thing that's going on. I mean, and so anyway, secure our border, number one. And then securing our elections, especially here in Nevada, where we've got such terrible election laws.
Well, now we're going to continue with the COVID protocol of mailing out twice as many ballots as we have citizens. And, you know, if you've lived anywhere for the past 5 years, you could get 3 or 4 ballots. And
we've lived in our house, the house we live in, we've owned for 12 years. And we got ballots for 4 people whose names we've never heard before.
And you've lived there for 12 years.
We've owned the house for 12 years. My brother lived in it before. And so these are 4 people we've never heard of.
Really?
So that they had to have been associated with the house
somehow,
12 years ago.
Right.
12 years ago. Yeah, that's how bad it was. Yeah, and so now the state law says we're going to send live ballots, unsolicited, to everyone on the ballot roll, on the voter rolls, and we know the rolls are corrupt.
I mean, if you went according to the voter rolls, we have like 5 million people in the ballot.
Yeah, we're sending ballots to everyone dead or alive. And then number 2 is no voter ID is required.
Right.
It's the law in Nevada, no voter ID. And number 3, ballot harvesting by third parties is legal.
You sound like you've been watching the Johnny Brew Show. Those are the 3 things that we're constantly talking about. You know, I mean, on top of everything else. Those are the 3 that are the tip of the iceberg.
Well, I must not be the only one talking about it. I must not be the only one watching Johnny Brew, because everyone, when I go out and talk to
they're all watching.
That's right, they're all watching, because number 1, secure the borders. Number 2, secure our elections. Number 3, secure our individual rights. Those rights of freedom of assembly and freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom to bear arms. So that's number 3. And then number 4, and people get passionate about number 4, and I feel strongly about it myself. I think that parents ought to have the right to choose which education option is most appropriate for their child.
Amen.
That might be public or private or charter or co-op or parochial, whatever's best for that child, and that parent should decide, not bureaucrats in Washington, not bureaucrats even at the state level, but the parents.
And it all comes back to what you said about individual liberty.
Exactly.
You know, and we're not white men or black men or Indian women. We are so much more than that. You know, I'm a 25% Japanese, 75% European teacher. You know what I mean? And I'm 6'4", and I got, you know, this face, and I got this body. You know, like everything is so individualized for all people. They all have their own path. They all have their own wants and desires and dreams and ambitions. And to people, you know, to this whole idea of the democratic, you know, putting everybody into a box just doesn't work.
Right.
If you break it down into enough boxes, what do you get? You get the individual.
Exactly. And it should, and not only should it be the decision on where they go to school based on that individual, the education dollars ought to follow the student. It would introduce competition into our education system, and it's competition that has raised performance in all aspects of American life, not just in business and in
transportation,
industry.
medicine, economy.
Think of the sports. We just had the Summer Olympics, and I remember swimming. There were multiple Americans in the same race. Okay, so they're all in the same team, but they're racing each other.
Right.
And I remember more than once. The person who came in second, the person who got a silver medal, broke a world record.
Right.
But he got the silver because the guy that got the gold was even faster.
Right, and that's been going on for decades.
Right.
I mean, they keep setting new records.
Yeah.
Like the 4-minute mile was impossible 30 years ago, right?
Yeah, so it's this competition raises performance. So you give parents a choice. Hey, you can choose this school, and it'll teach your child math, science, and reading. Or you can go to this school, and they'll teach you to judge other people by the color of their skin. Parents are going to choose what's best for their child. They're going to send them to learn math, science, and reading.
Probably, that's what you think. Maybe they wouldn't.
Well, it's whatever their choice is.
There you go.
But if the money's all going over here and these schools aren't getting any funding,
then they're going to go out of business.
they're going to evolve or die.
Right. That's called capitalism.
It is.
Well, I mean,
it's competition.
It's the American way.
It's what improves performance.
Well, you were speaking, I forget what it was in reference to, but you were speaking about like the Slam Academy.
Yeah.
And they specialize in sports in order to motivate children to do better, learn more, and, hone their craft for whatever, for what that's worth. And they've got a niche.
Yeah.
And people, might not be into that.
Right.
Don't send your kid there. People might be into it. Send your kid there.
Yeah.
Then if everybody's failing, then maybe you shouldn't send their kid there. If they're sending kids to USC and UCLA and they're getting good grades and they're becoming athletic, well, then they're going to get more business.
Yeah.
I mean, if it works, it works. And that's what America is.
Exactly.
I mean, whether you said you opened a business, it failed. You opened a second business, it worked.
Right.
I mean, I've been down that path before. Tell me about your first business.
So my brother-in-law is a brilliant auto mechanic. He's a master mechanic, and I had a degree in business management, finance.
So you teamed up.
So we said, hey, we can't lose, and we opened an auto repair shop on Las Vegas Boulevard. Didn't have a lot of money to get started.
Right.
The shop was called Al's Discount Auto, and my brother-in-law is not named Al.
Right. It already sounds like a sitcom.
Yeah. We kept it as Al's because we couldn't afford to change the sign, and we were all excited. This is going to be this big business, and we're going to.
Everybody's going to come here.
Yeah, and it failed. My brother-in-law wanted to be the kind of boss he always wished he had, and so he gave the profitable jobs to the mechanics that were there, and they loved it. But there were times when our taxes exceeded our net income for the month.
Right.
Because
they're going off gross.
Because a business owner has to pay employment taxes, has to pay Social Security and Medicare and unemployment insurance and workers' compensation for his employees.
Right.
And sometimes those bills were more than we even made in a month. And so I learned firsthand that having the government as a partner.
That you're a conservative?
Yeah, having the government as a partner is not the way to go, and I'm all for limited government and limited regulation.
I mean, whether you're talking about this new thing and God willing, this Build Back Better plan does not go through,
right?
Because it's not the 3.5 trillion that bothers me most, and that bothers me a lot, but it's the 800,000 new IRS tax agents. It's the new regulations, and the American people just aren't even. I don't even know. I know more than the average person, and I don't know nothing about the bill. And it's all about regulation and that thumb of the government. And
it seems like it's additional attempts, more attempts to get Americans addicted to government handouts.
Right.
And if we can start with our children, right now in Clark County School District, every child, regardless of their financial means, gets free meals. Right. Every child gets free meals.
And they won't. And if you try to get your child out of it, the school won't let you because they'll lose funding.
That's right. Every child gets. And so what we're telling our child, oh no, this is what government does. They give you free stuff. We should not be indoctrinating our child that the government who takes care of them. It's families who take care of children, not the government.
Right. And it's great as a supplement. And I even said, I love people. You know what I mean? And I'm a teacher. If I got a kid who needs a pair of shoes, we need to find a way to get this kid a pair of shoes. If there's a kid who's not getting fed at home, either we need to find him a better home, or, we could provide a snack, or we could feed the kid, until we, a hand up, not a handout.
Right.
But, just like you say, indoctrinating kids that, you're entitled to this, you're entitled to this. Oh, you didn't eat yet, you get free food, I don't need it, but I'm still going to take the freebie.
The message from the Socialist Democrats is families are no longer important.
Right.
You don't need a mother and father. Can't even use the term mother and father because gender.
Right, a birthing person and
you don't need
what's the other person? the partner in birthing person?
Whatever, yeah. But the government's going to take care of all of those things. And you don't need family anymore.
And 12 years doesn't seem to be enough. They seem to want them for 4 years from the time they're 1 to 5. That's government-funded preschool.
Yeah, preschool.
Then let's do
college.
free college. And you say people don't really understand that when they say this is going to be free college, right? They're not going to do free plumbing scholarships and free underwater welding scholarships. You're going to have to take whatever classes they want you to take. Well, and the question is, do we want a world where the cops are woke? Where the judges are woke, where
the military
is woke, exactly. Any kind of racism is horrible.
Yeah.
And then you talk about things like, being a libertarian, you're being free air, I bet you hate seatbelt laws too. Well, yeah, because A, I'll wear my seatbelt. B, the more laws, the less justice. If you're worried about racism, then you got to be against seatbelt laws. Because when you have such a frivolous law, the cop can decide who they want to prosecute.
Right.
You get a racist cop, he's going to pull over the black guy with the no seatbelt. Yeah. If you got some woke cop, he's never going to pull over a black guy, he's going to pull over the white guy. Yeah. And it's all horrible.
Right. And, as you're talking, it's reminding me as I go around talking to people, there's a lot of people that feel like we're kind of in dark days right now. Dark days. But I'd like to remind people that we've had dark days before. I'll give 2 examples. 9/11, 2001, was a very dark day. America had just been attacked. But 9/12, the very next day, this country came together. We sold out of American flags in every store. Right. There were, the pickup trucks and the cars driving down with American flags, people putting up flags at their home. Right. We came together as a nation. When you were born in 1976, the Carter administration talked about the melees the country's in, and we were losing the Cold War to the Soviet Union, and inflation was double digits, and we had lines at the gas station, things that we see going on right now.
Right. They say it on the TV, but obviously I don't remember. I was 3 or 4.
And so there was this real darkness that was covering the country. Ronald Reagan came in and he introduced principles of conservatism and personal responsibility and hard work. And we came out of that, and it was like a new day, like a new dawn. And so I remind people that we still live in the greatest country on earth. And there's some dark days going on right now, but we can get out of this. We can beat this. We can get control of our borders again. We can get control of our elections again. We can remain the country of opportunity that we've always been. And we ought to be optimistic. We ought to be hopeful.
Well, November 3rd, 2021 was optimistic, hopeful, and bright.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, can I read something that Mark released just a couple of days ago? You got that? It's the one about dated November 3rd. We have a news release that apparently you or your team, was it you or your team releasing this?
Yep, it's our team.
Beautiful. You mind if I read it?
No, that'd be great. Thank you.
Or would you like to read it?
I'd be happy to.
There you go. Right. I think you got it right there in your stack. Why don't you read that to us?
All right. Kamala Harris recently said, what happens in Virginia will in large part determine what happens in 2022, 2024, and on. Let's hope that she's right. It may be the first time she's right, but it could be the first time she's right. And then we went on to say, we the people have spoken. The victory of Republican Glenn Youngkin over Democrat Terry McAuliffe in the race for governor of Virginia is proof that a red wave is coming. The Democrat incumbent attorney general is also defeated by a Republican. No Republican has won a statewide race in Virginia since 2009. Voters showed up in force to send a message to Democrats. When you show nothing but disdain for America or people, don't be surprised when the people reject your party. Apparently, concerned parents who showed up at school board meetings don't like being called domestic terrorists. Apparently, they're not comfortable with their children being the victims of woke transgender ideology that threatens their safety. They don't want sexually explicit materials in their schools. They don't want their children indoctrinated with critical race theory. They won't allow their children to be sacrificed to progressive social experiments. The Biden administration has truly given Democrats a bad name. Turns out that no one actually wants soaring inflation, high gas prices, supply chain disruptions, an unemployment crisis, chaos at the southern border, civil unrest, military embarrassments, unjust vaccine mandates, inept leadership, or the descent into socialism. The Democratic Party has failed the working class. People are pushing back against the radicalism of the far left. This is a great night for America. The Republican victory in Virginia can be a source of hope for conservatives nationwide. We can and we will retake our country. If it happened in Virginia, it can happen in Nevada.
Your lips to God's ears. I sure hope so. That woman who just ran, I have a special lined up for her. I think she was in the Army, she was in the Marines. And,
the lieutenant governor.
Yeah,
yeah.
And she's got quite a remarkable story. She was an off-the-boat immigrant from Jamaica.
Exactly.
And said before she even became a citizen of this country, she joined the Army, the Marines, because she was so excited about what this country was offering her.
Right.
Just the potential of becoming a citizen. And I really like that, and it speaks volumes, and it's not hyperbolic.
Right.
It's not, you're not exaggerating when you're talking about what's going on at the school board meetings and what's going on, with everything from the supply chains and, what doesn't get backed up when you buy American, you don't have to ship it into our ports.
Good point.
Unemployment, we have unemployment, yet we have more jobs available than we have unemployed people.
Yeah.
It's backwards.
It just shows that if you pay people to stay home, they'll do it.
They will, right. And they get used to it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And then, like you said, going back to work, it's like trying something new. Right. You're going to have to talk these people into doing it again, and some people, and I fear for this, thanks to the media, some people are genuinely scared. And it's not even their fault. I mean, they're literally scared, and you see it, and, you want to mock them, and you want to chuckle, but at the same time, these people really have this fear that's been ingrained in them.
Sure, no. I mean, fear can control people. You can use fear to control people. And that's why I talk about this positive message, and we ought to be looking for to the future and have a positive message. We still have much to be grateful for. This is November. This is a month of gratitude. We have so much to be grateful for, to be Americans.
Well, while I was looking for dirt, and while I was looking for something to argue with, I finally found something that we could at least debate.
Let's do it.
All right. So I hear you have signed up and taken a pledge, I think it's with Ted Cruz, regarding term limits, where you want House of Representatives to be able to serve a 6-term maximum and senators to serve a 12-year maximum. That would be 3 terms and 2 terms respectively. And then I'm not 100% sure where I lean on this subject, but I think I lean towards no term limits, simply because, and I've been influenced recently, I just happen to be reading, do you know Sean Meehan?
No.
He's he's part of a conservative constitutionalist movement, and he believes, and this is part of my argument, but just he wrote it out so eloquently that I'm going to kind of steal his thunder a little bit, that, that would incentivize corruption, that if you're on your way out, you don't have to be beholden to your representatives. And we have elections for a reason. If you think somebody's been in too long, let's get them out. Otherwise, if you have term limits, we could be in a perpetual lame duck session in Congress for eternity. So having a term limit very well might increase corruption as opposed to decreasing it. And I think it was Alexander Hamilton who made it very clear that they took term limits out of the Constitution specifically for that reason.
Yeah, and we put them back in because we saw that a president without term limits becomes a tyrant and corruptible. And so we amended the Constitution.
Right. And you're referring to FDR.
To put term limits on the president. And I think Nevada's got it right. In Nevada, state and local positions have term limits. And I think it's the right thing. Obviously, I do, because I signed the term limit pledge. I don't remember the pledge being
I thought it was awful short.
I don't remember the pledge being affiliated with Ted Cruz.
I saw his name. Maybe I was looking at their website.
Maybe he signed it as well. I'm not sure.
Apparently, he wants. I gather, and don't quote me because I could remember it wrong. I forget things sometimes.
Yeah.
But apparently Ted Cruz wants to introduce this legislation.
Okay, well, it couldn't be done by legislation. It would have to be done
By
by a
amendment.
constitutional amendment, and every state would have to ratify it. So it would get a lot of discussion, exposure,
And it would take 6 to 8 years to implement.
Possibly. I mean, some amendments went pretty quickly because they were popular.
Right.
But I do not think the founders ever envisioned a permanent political class. I mean, think of that. The President of the United States spent 50 years in Washington. He has never had to live under the laws that he made in the Senate.
Right, but then we've also had somebody like Rand Paul, who is absolutely doing the yeoman's work with Anthony Fauci. And if we had term limits, because when I think of term limits, I thought that was excessively short. I was personally thinking, our firefighters, our teachers, our policemen, they get 20-year, and then they get to retire or have the option for retirement. Same with the military. It's 20 years is usually the deal. Yeah. I was thinking, regarding term limits, I was thinking more like a 20-year term, a 20-year for House and 24-year for Senate. Like, there is an end, you know what I mean? But it's not so short.
Yeah. I could... I'd be open to discussion on the length of it, especially the 6 years for a member of the House. But I think members of Congress should go home and live under the laws that they passed. Our original members of Congress, they went home regularly to run their farm.
They were supposed to be like, now we have the board of trustees, right? So they go to a meeting once a month or so. They get like $2,000 a year, and it's a very part-time job.
It wasn't this idea that you're going to spend your entire life and become wealthy in this thing. And so I like the idea of these being citizen legislature. They really are.
Well, we want regular people.
That's right. People say, "Why do you want to be a politician?" I do not want to be a politician.
Well,
I want to be a representative of the people of the CD3, and I'm not looking for a third career. And I think you then get the people who really do want to serve their country, because it's not something that's going to be able to get rich on and stay the rest of their life.
Such as joining the school board or running for school board, where you're not, again, now they're talking about this, that, the other thing, testing Chromebooks, they're all getting little under the table payment, but that's supposed to be the idea.
Right.
You serve at night, whether it's the PTA or the school board, you do your part, you go home and you run your business, or you go to work.
Yeah.
Well, all right. And now sometimes I take people by surprise when I do this, so I want to give you the opportunity to pause for a minute if you need to, but I want to give you the floor. I want you to tell the people who watch why they should be voting for you in CD3.
All right.
Now we could discuss the options a little more, because I didn't warn you that I was going to do this.
Oh, that's all right.
But I think I did it to Carolina.
Yeah.
She's like, okay. And I felt bad because I took her.
Ready.
You're ready?
Yeah, I've been talking to people at CD3, and they ask me that. Why are you qualified?
So you got your answer.
Why are you qualified? So
all right, guys.
I'm ready.
Well, Mark Robertson is running for the House of Representatives in District 3, which is all of southern tip of Nevada. He'll be running in the primary against April Becca, John Kovacs, Noah Malgeri, Clark Bossart, and then, of course, if he's lucky enough to win the primary, he'll be going against Susie Lee to represent House District 3, and this is why.
All right. So when people ask me, why are you qualified to serve in Congress, I give them 3 reasons. And it has to do with my local connections, my national service, and my international experience. I'm the only candidate in this race who has lived in the district since before the district was even formed. My wife and I raised our children in this district. I owned a business in this district. I taught school in this district. We worshiped in this district. So we've played, worked, shopped, and served in CD3. I will be accountable to the people of my district because they're my friends and my neighbors. Number 2 reason is national service. As John's pointed out, I served for 30 years in the military. One of my last assignments was in the Pentagon. I served in the Office of the Secretary of Defense for Policy. I have worked on national policy. I know we must secure our borders. I've also taught finance at UNLV, and I taught at the National Defense University in Washington, D.C. I have a degree in finance. I know how the economy works, and I know how to balance a budget. So I've had deep community roots, service at the national level, specifically on policy, and I have international experience. I deployed to 10 different foreign countries, 3 times the combat zones. I served as a U.S. delegate to the coalition against ISIS. This is 68 countries that met in a large room in Amman, Jordan. I had a little American flag in front of me, and I wore headphones so that the dialogue could be translated from Arabic and German and French. And so I have the experience of negotiating with other countries and working to find solutions, and those solutions worked as we destroyed the caliphate in both Iraq and Syria. So those are the 3 reasons that make me qualified to be your representative in Congress: deep community roots, national service, and international experience.
I mean, there you go. I mean, you're saying all the right things. I'm trying to trip you up. You're not. I mean, it's easy to keep your story straight when you're telling the truth.
True.
So, guys, also something else, when we're always looking at politicians and stuff, we wish we could find out how they stand on each and every issue. We want to be able to learn more about them, and sometimes you're not able to do so. Are you able to bring up Mark's website there? This is Mark Robertson for Congress.com.
It's Robertson for Congress.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Robertson for Congress.com. And on his page, first of all, having nothing to do with your qualifications, you have a very professional, nice-looking website, which is not the case for everybody, so I want to commend you on that. Yeah. You can find out all about his biography, and I think the 3rd page is issues. It says Mark's vision for the future. You could select a particular issue. If you scroll down, you'll see he gives you, without the drop-down tab, if you scroll down, he gives you a little sentence on how he feels about every single issue, and on top of that, you could click on any issue to get a more in-depth look at what he's trying to represent. Everything from the Second Amendment and national harmony. What is national harmony?
This is where the Democrats try to divide us. They try to divide us by our race or our gender, right, or our income levels, and harmony doesn't. If you think about harmony in an orchestra, not every instrument's playing the same tune.
Right.
They all have their part to play, but it sounds together. Sounds good when it comes together.
But it's easier said than done, because Democrats tend to think that we're trying, or at least the mainstream media is portraying. If you saw the coverage recently at the election, they're saying that we got racist dog whistles. We bring up school board meetings because we're secretly coding saying racism.
Of course they are. Of course they're saying those things, but it couldn't be further from the truth. We're all about freedom and allowing people to decide who they're going to be, and there's room for people to have diverse opinions on and choices of what they want to be. A word on the website. I got to tell you, the consultants, the political consultants, not ones we hired, they told me, don't tell people what you believe. I said, what? They said, hey, we're not telling you to lie. They just said,
like this.
Don't tell people what you believe, or you might offend somebody. But you know what? They said, talk in bumper stickers. Say things like, right, I'm for good paying jobs.
Right, and that's
I'm for clean air.
Like, who isn't?
Right. But I'm not listening to them. I think that's why we're in the trouble we got now, is that people who are running for office won't tell you what they will do when they get there. So I've defied the consultants, and you can see on 24 issues exactly where I stand and what I will do.
And what's great is I tell people, I think I am down to earth, common sense, logic, and a lover of the founding documents. But not everybody's going to agree with me on every single point.
Right.
And if you did, I'm a crazy person.
Yeah.
So if you agree with me on every single point, you're a crazy person too. And, like I said, I've been doing research. I found one thing with the term limits that I want to talk to you about.
Great.
We don't have to agree on every single thing.
That's right.
As long as we both are fighting for the same end goal, which is no longer the case with the Democrats and the Republicans. We used to be fighting for the same prize. Now we're not.
Right.
But as Republicans, we got to remember we are, because there's a lot of in-party politics that are starting to tear each other apart.
I know.
When we got to have a platform that simply says individual liberty.
Yep.
And a love for our founding documents, and we could work the rest out.
I agree.
If they could have LGBT and Muslims walking hand in hand, when in another country they're throwing each other off a roof,
right,
we could walk hand in hand, right, if we disagree on term limits?
I agree.
And then the election security, I mean, are you concerned about your ability to win an election in Nevada?
I think that there's so much enthusiasm. Again, remember, I'm getting back to this message of optimism and hope and happiness, and I think there's so much enthusiasm coming for the next election, 2022, that we will have a turnout that far exceeds the margin of fraud. So I am confident that we can win.
If you listen to a certain couple of experts, they say Trump did that. And that's why they broke the system, and that's why they're having trouble covering certain things up and this, that, the other thing. And they're saying Trump did way better. He did overwhelm their expected fraud meter. And, you know, I'm not saying that they're right or wrong or what's going on, but, you know, I felt that way in 2020. I bet money. I said, you know, you're looking at Trump rallies and you're looking at Biden rallies. You're hearing the people, you know, you're seeing what's going on. And there's no way Trump could lose. Yeah. I felt that way in 2020, so I'm concerned, you know.
Yeah, well, again, I want to remain positive and hopeful. I don't want the message to be, oh, don't come out and vote because your vote's not going to count.
That's what happened in Georgia.
We can't do that.
That happened in Georgia, and we lost the Senate.
We got to tell people, show up in big numbers, and let's make sure your voice is heard and your vote counts.
Beautiful. And then just to wrap things up, you told us about your foreign policy, election security, but I want to talk a little bit about the economy before I let you go. We have unemployment, we have inflation, we have products stuck in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. What is the answer?
Well, first we got to stop paying people not to work, whether that was the unemployment, the extended unemployment, or these new welfare benefits that are sending checks to everybody and there's no work requirement to it. You know, when God kicked Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden, his first words to them is, by the sweat of thy brow shall thou eat all the days of their lives. So in other words, you got to work if you want to eat.
Right.
And that was God saying it. And
right.
God loves us.
Right.
So it's okay. It's still an act of love to tell people, right, you want to eat, you got to work.
Right. Now, it's like a mama kicking the baby out the nest, right?
Yeah. I mean, you've been a coach. You know, the definition of a coach is somebody who gets people to do what they don't want to do so they can become what they want to become.
That's beautiful. I've never heard that. That's
right?
Beautiful.
Nobody wants to win sprints, right, but they want to be fast.
Right.
All right, so that's what a coach does. It gets people to do what they don't want to do so they can become what they want to become.
Did you get any inside information on this $3.5 trillion spending bill when you were up in Washington? Did you find anything out that's in there? Because
no, this is no secret. They hadn't released the text when I was up there, so nobody knows what's in there. It's once more Pelosi saying we got to pass it to find out what's in it. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Fortunately, enough sane people stopped it, and it's going to be scored by the CBO, by the Congressional Budget Office, and we're going to get a good look at what's in there, and we're going to hold these lawmakers accountable.
Yeah, because some of the problems is they call it a $3.5 trillion spending bill, but then they include something that's going to have 2 years of modified food stamps or something like that.
Yeah.
And the thing is that the modified food stamps, once you give them, they're never going to take them back.
Yeah.
So they're only processing it on the ticket price or the price tag, right, or whatever they call it in Congress, as a 2-year program, right, but you're supposed to finance them for 10-year blocks at the price tag. Yeah. So they're
it's a game. It's a bunch of lies. It's a game. It was Ronald Reagan said, there's nothing that comes close to eternal life than a government program.
Right.
Right? And that's exactly what they hope to, they're banking on, is they can fool us by saying, oh yeah, it's a 2-year program.
And that's why I say more than the money, the content is what scares me.
And Biden doesn't always tell the truth, but 2 things he said. He says he wants to fundamentally change America. We got to listen to that. He says, I want to fundamentally change the greatest country in the history of this world. And he wants to go to socialism. But he also said, yeah, we're only going to do this for two years so we can get the money and get this passed now, but we're coming back for the rest.
Right, I remember him saying that as well.
Yeah, he doesn't often tell the truth, and he sometimes makes a mistake and does, and he did. So they've shown their hands. That's exactly what they intend to do.
And then the last thing I want to ask you about is the whole COVID disaster. Yeah. I mean, we've been saying all the time, it depends on what state you're in.
Right.
It depends on what city you're in. I'll tell you right now, I went to San Diego, I went to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It's two different worlds.
Right.
And San Diego is right in the middle of California or whatever you want to call it. And those San Diego people, none of them are wearing masks. And in California, if you step out of your car in the parking lot, some Karen's yelling at you to put on your mask.
Yeah.
Here in Vegas, it depends on who's at the door. You walk into Walmart, 9 times out of 10, you walk in no problem. 1 out of 10 times, you got somebody yelling at you.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not scientific. Well, how do you feel about, Congress's...
I am pro-freedom. I think the role of the government should be to give us good, honest, correct, complete information, and then allow us to make the decision ourselves. People want to get vaccinated, and I did. My wife and I are both fully vaccinated. It was a choice we made. But if somebody chooses not to be vaccinated, we ought to honor that choice. Right. And so I am pro-freedom. I'm for freedom. I'm against mandates. I like when a mandate used to be when 2 guys went to the movies together. This idea of the government telling us what to do is just the wrong direction for the land of the free.
It spits right in the face of everything we were built on. I mean, body autonomy. You see what's going on with Aaron Rodgers right now.
Right.
He was America's hero, and now he's America's villain. And what's most notable about this is when you watch the coverage from the mainstream media or even somebody like ESPN or something like that, 100% of these mainstream media people are bashing him. There's not one person at NBC or ESPN, there's not one person who agrees with Aaron Rodgers that they could put on the TV just to showcase another side of the... Like, everybody hates him.
Have you seen the salaries of these talking heads on the mainstream medias? I mean, it's incredible. The hundreds of thousands of dollars, some of them $1 million contracts they have, they are part of the elite. And if you look at any socialist society, North Korea, Venezuela, any socialist society, China, it's the elites that benefit. It's the elites that thrive. It's the elites that can have all the food that they want. It's the people that suffer.
And how do people not have an alarm bell go off
because
when all the richest people in the world are screaming tax the rich? I mean, it doesn't make you... When Jeff Bezos is printing in his newspaper tax the rich, you got to think, wait a minute, you are the rich. You're like what are you doing? And then they're saying, oh, we're only going to tax the top 1%, and you don't think there's going to be a race to the bottom for the top 10% or bringing your money offshore? Like, how do people not see through it when all the rich people are saying tax the rich?
Because of course they control the media, so they control the message, and they're promising lots of free stuff, and it's an enticement to many people. I mean, all of us. Well, who doesn't like free stuff? And so they're using our money to buy our votes and for us to sell our freedom.
If you see a creepy old man outside the school offering free candy, alarm bells should go off.
That's right.
When all the rich people are promising poor people money and they want to tax more of the rich people, you gotta...
Don't believe them.
Yeah, it just doesn't pass the smell test. Well, that was wonderful, Mark. I mean, thank you coming down. I mean, I think the most important thing for people who are voting is to get to know the candidates more than just some bumper sticker.
Yeah.
It is precisely, and it looks like you're on the same page, and that's why we like having you guys on. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, John.
And maybe sometime before the primary, you can come back on and give us an update.
Happy to do it.
Awesome. Guys, don't forget, you need to subscribe. You need to hit the notification bell. If you like this kind of coverage, we're going to have all types of people on. I got some exciting announcements about the next interviews we do have lined up. So make sure you hit that notification bell, you subscribe, or hit us up where you get your audio podcasts. If you're old school like me, I used to love AM radio. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all that stuff. Don't forget, we're on Facebook, The Johnny Brew Show, Common Sense Nevada, as well as the new CCSD Board of Trustees for 2022 and 2024. Let us know what you think, thejohnnybrewshow@gmail.com, or text us at 702-501-5304. My name is John Brookhagen with Mark Robertson. Thank you very much for joining us.